I need assistance with getting protection as a protected witness, and I want somebody today to bring charges concerning kidnapping and attempting to extort me into agreeing to engage in acts of terrorism, specifically connected to sanctions that were placed on the nation of the Ukraine in March of 2014. I contend that somebody decided that, in accordance with a long-standing process associated with illegal deals that were hooked up in abuse of their political office at the time, since I was a child, I've been used in derivative designations to the Office of Foreign Asset Control, including in manners that are in abuse of my grandfather and perhaps even my uncle's pension benefits by virtue of the fact that they are former employees of the Department of Treasury. And there have been efforts to attempt to entice or extort me into agreeing to engage in illegal activities, up to and including acts of prostitution and money laundering. And yet, my early efforts as a journalist to cover these issues from a professional standpoint and to take specific political stances in opposition to the legitimization of such vice economies were intentionally disappeared so that they could be used in acts of securities fraud, not only to frame me, but to frame national actors in the Ukraine and perhaps other countries of the former Soviet Union and or their affiliates. I contend that this is ongoing to this day, and that there are people with whom I used to actually work professionally that, in addition to having an understanding of what was set up in Texas when I came in 2005 from one perspective or another, were directly aware of the implications of me being used in derivative designations connected to sanctioning of entities associated with the Ukraine in 2014, and to this day have maintained a process whereby they are collaborating with those that are actually trafficking me, including in connection with acts of terrorism. I have absolutely no reason to be in any situation to try to sabotage the economy or polity of the Ukraine or any other country of the former Soviet Union. And even insofar as I have traveled to other countries, including other countries where there may be specific either economic interest or some kind of political interest, including ones that might be opponents to the existing power structure, willing and ready to engage in whatever their legitimate rights of redress are in consideration of their political protest, nobody had any right to try to compel me to agree to cooperate with organized crime that had infiltrated the government, including the military, including in abuse of their access to resources through the State Department, up to and including the CIA, and then try to use me in order to launder money, including in connection with acts of terrorism, in efforts to undermine the national economy and polity of other countries, including and especially the Ukraine. It's just literal. Somebody decided that they were going to completely abuse my rights to due process here in Texas when they gave some sort of derivative coding to me being a maritime vessel under the jurisdiction of a Ukrainian company, and have been doing that ever since. And in the course of that, what it has revealed is that literally somebody set up deals based upon me needing to leave my job in compliance with the Department of Public Health in San Francisco in order to continue committing heinous, heinous crimes that came with a specific targeted identification and a targeted hits on people associated with the polity and the economy of the Ukraine. I contend that somebody had an agenda to try to contrive accusations that certain people were white supremacists so that they could acquire their lives, including their intangible properties, as their estates for their own personal consideration of what they consider to be reparations for slavery in the United States or some other crime. But in the course of doing that, what you've done is you've allowed for a complete dispossession of legitimate political allyship within the United States. And you've aided and abetted crimes even more heinous than those that you allowed to be publicly presented on your behalf. This has divested the United States of a very substantial form of political legitimacy. And what it's done is it's helped prop up even more racist conspiratorial elements, and including the same kinds of white supremacy that people are justifiably irate at. You don't get to use white slavery of certain specific people in order to concede some kind of acquiescence from actual white supremacists and actual people engaged in actual acts of slavery, including his acts of political retaliation. I'm really, really disgusted that to this time, I'm not allowed to meet with anybody that's from a country of the former Soviet Union, and yet nothing in my life is allowed to be done on my own behalf or in my own name. I am constantly finding what I should have been doing on my own behalf and in a legitimate manner to seek redress for wrongs against me and my communities in the United States, offload it to countries of the former Soviet Union, usually in an arrangement that leaves no other possibility for me except to engage literally in acts of prostitution or aid and abet illegal distribution of controlled substances, including prescription medications, as a means by which to facilitate a distribution network of narcotics, actual illegal drugs. And in the course of this, while people have remained silent, including when I show up in their town and am right down the street ready to meet with them, what they've done is sat on it long enough to get marijuana legalized. And that makes me think that literally, at some point in time, it was contrived to try to frame the then existing government of the Ukraine in 2014 in order to lean on them so that you could legitimize and legalize marijuana in the United States in an effort to destabilize the national economies and the governments of countries abroad, including countries that may not see harm reduction strategy or medical marijuana as a medical priority, including in manners that might actually see that as some sort of exhibition of a lack of moral turpitude that might have an impact on how to educate and how to organize young people, including young people that are already having to deal with issues of sexual precocity and other issues related to sexuality, and including people that might want to be leaders, including leaders in the energy sector. And we have all of these possibilities that have been cut off because the political priorities have been in sensationalizing vice and telling people that the most lucrative and politically accessible options they have in their lives are to basically engage in a wholesale, large-scale minstrel show. And then once you perform up to a certain expectation, you might be able to out-humiliate somebody else. And once you've done this, and once you've demonstrated your requisite level of recovering from the shame, well, then you've demonstrated your resiliency. And once you write your check, you've demonstrated your loyalty. And then you're a citizen in somebody else's Uber nation. It's not acceptable. If I was a citizen of the Ukraine and you had a problem with me because you believed I was involved with some sort of illegal activity, then you should have confronted me directly. But you have no right to contrive some completely racist, completely extortionate scenario in my background and then try to ping me around in derivative processes my entire life, while you also try to sabotage other people that are actually citizens or would be citizens if you weren't interfering with their national economy right now. If you are a part of a global political network that engages in these kinds of acts of extortion of specific members of political leadership or potential members of political leadership because you want to affect regime change in another country and think you have the cover of some sort of charity in order to back you or aid and abet it, regardless of whether or not you consider it a faith-based organization, I'm letting you know you do not, you never did. It's money laundering. It's money laundering through a charity, an American organization set up based on acts of identity theft in matters of political reprisal. Anything else you do with your political agenda stems from there. So it really is important for you to demonstrate what this leadership is that you keep wanting to be acknowledged for, that somehow is able to command my life, to alter my behavior, so that I have an understanding of what you're modeling. Because what it seems you're modeling is play like you're the Ukrainian hooker, and once you seal the deal with the old man, maybe we'll give you a younger man who's more attractive. I swear to God, that's your model of leadership. I repudiate it. I repudiate it on all terms possible. So show me something else, for God's sake.